So I'm going to be running Max for Live and running audio from Ableton into Max for Live. And we've just loaded up a model that was trained for the last 2 days on Mr. Bill's music. So I really don't know how it's going to come out. This will be a really exciting experiment. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to hit share then.
Wow.
Hello and welcome to the Mr. Bill podcast. My name is Ben Cantil, a.k.a. Encanti from Zebler Encanti Experience, and I'm recording this from Tel Aviv, Israel, where I'm en route to perform with an awesome crew called Fusion Culture. On today's show, we're taking a deep dive into AI-generated sound design with legendary music producer Rob Clouth, audio researchers Zach Zukowski and CJ Carr, also known as the Dadabots, and my amazing partner in crime, Catherine Stewart. This interview was recorded live from our coding retreat at Eagle Rock in Scotland last month, headquarters of our new audio software company, Datamind Audio. It was such an honor to tell the world about this exciting work we've been doing on Mr. Bill's podcast and to have a conversation about AI-generated audio in the context of electronic music production. If you're interested in being the first to know about our AI-generated plugins, give us a follow at Datamind Audio or sign up to our mailing list at datamindaudio.ai. Also, remember to sign up for membership at MrBillsTunes.com, which is truly an incredible place to access music production tutorials and resources for all kinds of music producers. And that is an honest endorsement. Mr. Bill has not asked me to tell you that. I'm just a big fan and believer in what he's doing. So I hope you sign up, I hope you give us a follow, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you are listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're 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 listening to the Mr. Bill podcast. Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
Hey, you're listening to the Mr. Bill podcast.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on my podcast, everyone. It's really, I'm excited for this conversation. AI and music and AI in general has been something that I've been interested in for a while, but specifically lately it seems to have made it into the public eye a lot more with just these, crazy image generators for the most part, I guess, that have been around, but also of late, I've seen a few crazy music generators where you can go online and just type like, I want a beat that sounds kind of like Mr. Oizo if he was on tons of crack, and let's put some Apple Crunch noises in there and blah, blah, blah. And then it will generate you just some, little 30-second loop or whatever. And for the most part, the ones that I've heard have sounded mostly shit, but I've heard a couple that have sounded pretty cool. And I guess people like we have here, I would class some of the people with the more professional opinions on that kind of stuff in the industry. So I'll do a quick intro, I suppose, of what I know about you, and then from there you could maybe introduce yourself more. But so here we have Encanti. He's an educator at Berklee University. He developed the master's sound design program there, as well as another program there, plus obviously Ableton Wizard. You run your own classes, and of late you did, I believe, a PhD in some sort of music technology program, and now you're making VSTs and doing all sorts of crazy shit with AI. Catherine, what I know about you is that you're an author and a writer, and Dadabots, I don't know a lot about you, so maybe you could do the intro there. And then obviously Rob Clouth is here as well, and man, you're one of my favorite artists of all time, to be honest. So hopefully a lot of people here know you, but if they don't, the first that I heard of you was Vatex, which was this crazy glitch IDM project back in the day that I really fell in love with. And then you went on to do the Rob Clouth stuff, which is really techie sort of techno craziness. And obviously since then you've developed your own VSTs with companies and done all sorts of interesting stuff with programs like Max and whatnot. So would you like to go around the table and sort of talk about more what you all do, or let's do that first, and then we can maybe get into the weeds of actual AI in the music industry.
Yeah, maybe we start off on the Dadabots.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yo, we're CJ and Zach from Dadabots. We're a band that uses machine learning. We started 10 years ago as interns at Berklee. Coming from extreme music, so extreme metal, death metal, mathcore, and extreme electronic music, noise, breakcore. Just trying to see how we could push music even further, make it even more fucked up than it is. And in the words of Mike Patton, the more fucked up music is and the further away it is from music, the healthier. And just kind of like being in that zone, that place and time with like Echo Nest and music information retrieval and like very early generative music. It was super addicting. We became super obsessed. We design neural synthesis. So these are neural nets that generate raw audio, and we'll collaborate with bands and artists to do all kinds of things. For example, the UK beatbox champion Reeps won. We made him a neural net that he battles, and this helps him up his own game. We also run a 24/7 death metal generating live stream on YouTube that's been running for 3 years straight.
That was you guys? I know that one, dude. I swear to, I sent you an email, man, and you never responded, you motherfucker.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I
really?
Sent an
email. Wait, we're huge fans. How did we miss that?
No, I literally, whoever made that 24-hour gent live stream thing on YouTube, I sent an email to whoever did that through Bandcamp. I must have been you guys, because there's only one of them, I believe. And I was like, yo, literally...
the gent live stream is Martin. So that's not us. We have a tech death live stream, and ours is using neural synthesis, and Martin's is incredible. And that's all procedural generation.
That's the one.
Both sound wicked cool. Yep. Recently we started this open source lab called Harmony, which I think you're in, Mr. Bill, the Discord.
Yeah, I know about that one.
And yep. So we have just thousands of GPUs, and just working with artists to try to make the tools of the future.
All right, Rob, how about you next?
Hello. I'm Rob Clouth, and I'm an electronic musician, sound designer, and programmer, I guess. I've been interested in generative music since I was, 15, 16, listening to a.k.a. And I think lots of electronic musicians have gone through the same thing, where they're like, how the fuck do I make that sound? And then they get that classic a.k.a. or not a.k.a. patch that they find on the internet, and then open it up, and you see a mess of cables and boxes, and you're like, okay, I want to learn how to do this. So I've been messing around with Max for quite a few years now, and then I guess over the last 3 years or 2 years, I've been really trying to get into this kind of cheat boxing thing, which the idea is to use machine learning algorithms to convert my voice into banging beats in real time, so that I can kind of stream sounds out of my head into the computer a little bit faster. Basically been working with these guys over the last couple of days on an algorithm, which hopefully I'll be able to use for this kind of stuff. Yeah. So that's where I'm at now.
Cool. Perhaps Catherine, you could introduce yourself next.
Hi there, I'm Catherine. I have a background basically in film and television, and also in edutainment programs. So, behavior change for communities on the ground. And I guess my role in this, as the sort of only non-music producer and non-sound designer, is to listen a lot. It's fascinating hanging out with this crew and just listening to them talking to each other. and also just sort of keep the show on the road. We got a grant from Creative Informatics, which is a resident entrepreneurship at Edinburgh University. And so there's the academic side to this, there's the entrepreneurial side, and then there's this amazing creative retreat we've had for the last 10 days here. So yeah, general cook and bottle washer.
Awesome. And I guess finally, Ben.
Hey, what's up, Bill? Thank you so much for having us on. It's really exciting to have this crew together and to be talking with you and moderating this discussion today. As Catherine mentioned, we won a grant from the Creative Informatics Department at the Edinburgh University. And we used that grant to start a software company. We're called Data Mind Audio. And our mission is to create AI plugins for sound design in the music production space. In this last couple days, we have been putting together our very first offering. Rob has been the coder on this, and the Dadabots have been putting together the neural networks, and we've been building this architecture together. We're putting together this thing that right now we're calling it the Combobulator. We're hoping it could be a kind of a game changer for a lot of industry professionals. It reimagines and redesigns any sound going into it to resemble the music producers that it's trained on. So it's kind of a style transfer for real-time audio. And we're pretty excited about it because, as you mentioned, there are an increasing number of AI music options available out there. But as far as we know, this is one of the first ones that can do it in real time and that is designed by artists for artists and that uses semi-modular functionality. So when opening this up, you'll find LFOs and envelopes and all these things that you expect to see in an instrument. So we're trying to take this really interesting new ways of generating sound and put it into something really familiar for music producers.
Awesome. So just to make this sort of a all-inclusive chat that somebody who has no idea about any of this could listen to, does somebody want to give a quick rundown on basically what AI is, what a neural network is, etc.? And maybe Rob or data miners or data bots would be a good one for that.
Oh, yeah. So AI is an algorithm. It typically runs on a graphics card, a GPU, and it falls under, we're using machine learning, which is a type of algorithm that learns. So if you give it data, it will find statistics in it. And if you give it some objective, like say, listen to some music and predict what's going to happen next, machine learning is that sort of problem falls under machine learning. And it turns out that neural networks are generally the best way to do that kind of algorithm. And they're heavy duty. The kinds of large models we train them on, 256 GPUs. But we're trying to make them small enough so that they can run on anybody's laptop in a DAW. And that's what we're doing here altogether, using research by Antoine, who made Rave, which is a neural net that can do style transfer and can do continuations, and it runs fast enough to run on a typical laptop on a CPU. And this is like a total breakthrough in the research, like actually being able to do this in a way where people can use it and play with it live in their DAW.
So from my understanding, a neural network is basically a bunch of inputs and a bunch of outputs, and you feed it a bunch of inputs, and then you set like whatever, quote unquote, like weights to them or something like that, right? And say like, these are the things that I want you to be interested in. And then slowly over time, it starts to do something with whatever data you're feeding into it. And from my understanding, we don't exactly know what happens in the middle part, and then it outputs a bunch of shit. Is that correct, or am I totally wrong?
Yeah, basically. This stuff works even if you don't exactly understand what's happening in the middle. But over time, people are figuring it out and coming up with new architectures that run faster, train faster, aren't as expensive. Some of these models, like OpenAI Jukebox, require millions of dollars to train. and we want to make it so that anybody can do it for free. There's just breakthroughs are just happening faster and faster, and it takes a lot to kind of keep up. But also, if you're new to it, you can sort of cut in line by just jumping on whatever's the latest and greatest, and starting there as your journey.
Right. I mean, I guess it's no different to music in that way, right? Like in terms of standing on the shoulders of other people to kind of get stuff going faster, versus like if somebody tried to make a top tier level dubstep in 2005, it's like very different, not only technologically, but like also in just the idea space of like what people are even thinking to do is extremely different these days. In terms of all of the stuff going on inside of the neural network, it's from what I understand, not completely indifferent from basically how a human brain deals with data and outputs things, right?
There's some similarities, particularly, definitely the network structure. I guess what's interesting about the neocortex of the brain is that it's one algorithm, so to speak, repeated over and over and over and over. And it's just really, really good at doing its job, human level thinking. And with deep learnings, you also have these algorithms that, like transformers, where you just repeat attention, this one component over and over and over and over and over again, and works really well, which is really fascinating.
Yeah. This stuff is kind of pretty fucking mind-blowing for sure. What's going on with all of the GPUs? You said you have 256 GPUs. So do you own this many, or are you using the computing power from somewhere else?
Compute has always been a constraint. But Zach and I, we, in the early days of Dadabots, we were competing in hackathons, and those are kind of coding art competitions. We would go to music hackathons, and we'd try to come up with some music algorithm, and there's a show and tell at the end, and sometimes there's prizes. And very early on, 2015, we were winning compute credits to train models on GPUs, like 100K worth of credits on AWS, for example, to just use their GPUs to make death metal and black metal and Kurt Cobain acapellas. That's kind of how we started, and it's just super expensive, and not something we could afford. But we kept competing to win these credits, and now we're using Stability AI's cluster, and Stability. They started by just getting a bunch of these open source groups working on different research just for their own passion, and just providing free compute. That's what they did with us. We teamed up with Zach Evans to make Harmony, and there's 4,000 GPUs that everyone's using.
Wow. I have a question for Rob. You said that you basically made a bunch of you made an algorithm that is trained on beats, and then you set it up in such a way that you can now make beats with your mouth, and then it will transfer those into actual sounding normal beats or something like that. Could you talk a little bit on that, and just like how you trained it, what kind of information you fed into it, what it's doing, and then finally what it's outputting and what you've been using that for in musical senses?
Sure. So I'm actually using this algorithm which came out of Earcam called Rave, and it's what we're basing this new software on as well. So my goal is to be able to beatbox into a microphone, and then the output in real time sounds like proper drums or any other sound. Because I've got these, I've got like hours and hours and hours of like Vatex style beats trapped in my head, but I just can't be fucked to do all of the clicking required to get them out anymore. So I'm trying to cut corners and get more of a direct input into the computer using my voice. And so, it's a neural network which is being trained on various things. The main one that I've been messing around with is trained on like jungle sounds. But then also I've been playing with one that's been trained on Randomer mixes. Randomer, the techno guy.
No, I don't.
Just to get like super banging techno vibes. And my goal is to get the latency down short enough so that I can actually do it live. And then Yeah, it'll be super, super fun. The way it works is a sound comes in and then the network compresses the audio into these short blocks of numbers, which are kind of like a representation of the sound that's coming in. But what's fun is then you can play with these numbers. You can like add numbers to it, or you can just like add noise to them or fuck around with them. And then the output is like wildly different. So you can get something which sounds like realistic drums, and then you just add a bit of noise to these numbers in the middle, and it will sound like something completely different. So for like in a live context, it's like super fun because you can go from something which sounds realistic to something which sounds like a glitched up nightmare, just with like a couple of knob twists. Yeah, so that's the goal. It's like I just want to be able to get sounds out of my head into a computer faster, and I want to be able to jam, but with like high quality produced sounds. Yeah, I guess all of it stems from like a little bit of laziness, but then also I want to create like an instrument that I can get good at and really focus more on like the live aspect of electronic music. So that's where I'm trying to go with that.
Right. So like, let's say for instance, you want to, I don't know, like in the very simplest sense, create a kick drum or something. You would just go to the microphone, and the idea is you go boom, and it recognizes, hey, that's Rob or whoever trying to make a kick drum. I'm going to take that block of sound that's coming in, turn it into a stack of numbers, and be like, that's a stack of numbers that looks like it's supposed to be a kick drum. And then is it taking a kick drum that already has been recorded and exists and then spitting that out with some shit on top of it? Or is it basically saying like, here's the actual audio input, I'm now going to transform some stuff with that so that waveform or whatever now looks a little bit more like a kick drum, and I'm going to actually like use that bit of audio to make one and spit it out? Or what's going on there?
Yeah, so it's like the second one, because have you messed around with Voclear?
Maybe. Impossible to say. I have like 900 plugins.
Voclear is it's trigger based, so it's another way of like creating beats with your voice. But in that one, you train, for example, what it sounds like when you make a kick drum sound with your voice. You got to give it like training samples, and you're like boom, 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 boom,
right.
boom. That's the kick, and then you train the snare. And then every time you do like a kick sound, it will play back a sample. But which I think that's an interesting way of doing it. But I'm more interested in like the textures between the beats. So like, for example, sometimes you want to do like a longer kick, or you want to do like a reversed kick, or you just want to go into the microphone and have something always come out. So that's what's nice about this this rave algorithm, is it tries to convert like every single little bit of audio that comes out of the microphone into something that sounds like drums, or another kind of voice, or just whatever the model's been trained on. So it's like much more fun for just like textures and fills and all of the bits that come between beats. That's not just the actual triggers themselves.
Right. So let's say you make that sound that you just made. How many parts is that being broken up to, like in terms of window sizes of numbers, like blocks of numbers, for instance?
So basically, I'm trying to get that as small as possible because that's what determines the latency. So at the moment, I've got it to like 512.
Which means like what, every 512 samples or something like that?
Yeah, so that's what the latency is at the moment. So it's like just about doable live, but that you get this kind of like echo back in your ear. And so it's like not quite short enough. So I'm going to try and like chop that in half, I think. But every time you chop it in half, it like bumps up the CPU load. So at the moment, the algorithm's running at like 90%, 80%, 90% CPU. So I might have to like buy a separate computer for it or something. But it's super fun to play with, I have to say. Like,
yeah. So something that a computer engineer told me like last year or something like that is that the reason the CPU is in the middle of the motherboard is due to limitations of the speed of light, and therefore you don't want all of your components like, when your motherboard, your CPU in like one corner and then like shit at the other corner of the motherboard, because then like the speed of light or whatever it's like slightly further away, so they put it right in the middle and then like everything is very close together. But these new like silicon chips or whatever is now everything's just sort of stacked into a chip or something, and therefore it makes shit way faster or something. I'm probably sounding like a dumbass right now, but that's my basic understanding of shit. But I'm curious as to like what sort of other latency limitations there are in doing this kind of stuff, because it seems like there's a shit ton of work that has to happen on the computer's part to like get an audio signal in, do a bunch of stuff to, or first of all, recognize what it is. Secondly, break it up into a ton of things, then add a bunch of shit to it, and then generate a thing and then output that thing. It seems like there's just a lot of steps there, and I'm just really curious as to how you're getting that to happen almost in real time. Because from my experience with AI stuff up until this point, is that you give it something, either a prompt or another piece of audio or an image or something, and you say, do your thing. And then you're like, all right, now I'm waiting for like 10 minutes to like wait for it to do the thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is all really thanks to Antoine and his work at Earcam. The actual algorithm itself, like the rave part, I'm just training models and tweaking parameters. Like most of the work, like the vast majority of the work was done by those guys at Earcam. And yeah, they've managed to find a way of doing this generation in real time with like relatively low latency. And for me, it's just like a total game changer. Because like previously I was using, I guess, yeah, it's like an optimization technique, I guess, for doing audio mosaicing. And it's the kind of the same vibe. You got this style transfer thing. So I was recording like clips and loops with my voice, and then doing this style transfer to kind of, I don't know, make it sound like rustling leaves or falling rocks or something like that. But it was like an offline process, you recorded some stuff, and then you throw in some samples, and then you had to like wait for 30 seconds or a minute or more, depending on like the length of the audio. And then you get your result. But with this new way, it's like super immediate and you can jam with it. And that's what's super fun is it feels much more like plugging a USB cable into your brain and just like streaming out the sound. So yeah, it's way more playful.
Zach, I don't know you, but I guess like let's go to you now, and I'll pose some questions to you, just so you get a chance to speak also, and then we'll get on to Ben and Catherine and some examples. So another thing that I'm really interested in with AI stuff, or in general, I suppose this is more of like a human issue, is like creativity and not getting blocks. And I have this theory that if you can reliably generate stimulus input into a human, like via whatever eyes, ears, or any other sense that human finds to be creatively stimulating, that we can beat the creative block. And I've done that over the years just by having a bunch of tricks up my sleeve for being creative, right? Like if I'm not feeling something that day, I'll be like, all right, well, I'll just do something else creative like sound design, or I'll just do something else like start like working on something with my hands like in the garage, or just like any other thing that I know like keeps my mind busy. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that gives me an idea for a song. And then I go start writing it, right? So one thing that I've been super interested in with AI is the stimulus generation aspect of it, in terms of what Rob was just saying, like quote unquote jamming with a computer or jamming with AI. I'm curious as to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's been this kind of hunting and gathering process in the past where, like you said, it's been kind of slow offline stuff where you generate a bunch of crap and like maybe like 1% of it's good. And you're like, oh, what was that? You generate more to probe around in that area. It's a lot of curation. And I feel like we're reaching this point now where it's getting more connected to maybe traditional human musicianship gesture, whether it's beatboxing, tap dancing, nailing a hammer into a wall that could be style transferred into a beat. I don't know. Like there's so many different things. You're talking about like building, maybe just building. You could have crazy sounds come out of the rhythms of just you building that you haven't thought of when you're like sitting down in front of a computer and you're like on the grid, right? So I think that it's going to open up a lot of just connection to. I'm already thinking, I'm inspired by this flavor from this artist, this flavor from this artist. When we can blend them, merge them together, it's not merely replicating some artist, which is a bit how we started, focusing on one style of an artist's kind of deep faked sounds or something. But when it's really like just different color palettes that we mix, different textures, and it's just like, this has been mentioned already, but like just coming quickly from, your ideation into realizing it, then that hunting gathering process just accelerates, and you don't really know where it's going to lead you.
Yeah, I've always been super interested in jamming with computers. The way I generally would do it at this point is if I'm not feeling anything and I'm like, I don't want to write, I'll just essentially throw random samples into granulizers or whatever, and all of a sudden it gives me ideas to make music with. And I think that that's pretty similar to making music with another person in a studio. And that's why I like to collaborate so often actually with other producers, is because it's just exciting. Like they do things that you don't expect them to do. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like you added that beat to that like section of that song. That gives me like another idea. Or, like if I'm sitting in a room with someone and they go like, oh, blah, 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 do their thing. All of a sudden I'm like, fuck, can I jump on? I got an idea, And I really love the idea of being able to delete the other human from that experience.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think I got into like electronic music and using shit like Fruity Loops and Acid Pro back in the day when I was in all these punk bands, and we would like write songs together, spend 6 months like refining everything, go to the studio, record it, and then the band would break up and all the songs were gone, and we didn't want to have anything to do with it. I just got so sick of that process. It's fun, you have friends, you're hanging out, but sometimes there's not like quite the essence of it at the end. It's more of like a moment of just like friendship and stuff, which is awesome. But I think I wanted to work alone and just like get my ideas out. And working on a computer all day is isolating and somewhat boring sometimes too. But having the feedback coming maybe back at you from this more intelligent like music instrument that can play off at your ideas, like, do things that are absurd and gibberish and not exactly what a human would do, but it's almost like an improv game where you're just thrown something crazy and you deal with it. So I like that point about like working alone, but now you don't feel quite alone because you're in this like cool like hall of mirrors, like looking at yourself differently. I think that's a pretty like beautiful outcome.
And there's these. It also enables collaboration, like huge collaborations on a song. Like we did a track last year for the AI song contest called "Nuns in a Mosh Pit," and there were like 14 people that contributed to it, including the guitarist Pliny. I'm like, yo, Pliny, do you want to do a guitar? Do you want your bot to do a guitar solo on this song? And then I'm like, okay, Duncan from Vulvodynia, the South African slam death band, is like, do you want your bot to be the vocalist on this song? And just it bringing in other artists just by them being like, oh yeah, cool, use the training data on the song, go for it. You could create these like huge super groups very quickly.
Yeah, this is something I was talking about on the podcast literally in like 2019. I was like, oh man, one day we're just going to be able to have like something running in the background of our computer whilst we make music in the way that we normally do. And that thing is just going to be constantly taking in data. And then at some point it's going to be like, Bill likes kick drums like this. Bill never picks things like this. Bill's go-to synthesizers are these ones, and the go-to types of sounds and the things that he reaches for first, and all of these processes, they're all totally finite things that producers in our mind were like, man, music's so infinite. And it's like, it seems that way, but it's really not. Like if you break it down, we do the same 6 or 7 things just folded different ways over and over again. And at the end of the day, if you listen to a Mr. Bill tune, it sounds pretty much like 90% of the way to another Mr. Bill tune with a couple of edits to it, basically. And as much as artists like to be like, oh, this song is all my shit is so different. How am I ever going to play it in a set, man? It's like, you just feel that way because you're looking at it way too closely. It's like, step back. It's fucking Mr. Bill music. Like, it's not that complicated. And yeah, I mean, for a computer, that's especially finite. Like for a human, it seems incredibly infinite and complicated. But I think for us, it's really not. For computers, it's not. Catherine, I have a question for you. I kind of want to chat a little bit as well about AI in like for artists and work and stuff like that, and the fears that come with that for jobs being taken. And one of the things that I often think about, or one of the ways that I think about this, is we have these algorithms, right, that can absolutely destroy human beings in zero-sum games. And a good example of that is chess. We have computers that can just beat human beings at chess every single game, and humans, even the best ones in the world, like Magnus Carlsen and stuff like that, will never beat them. And still, we put in the effort to make these giant competitions for humans to play each other, and there's a giant fan base of people who want to watch humans play each other, even though we could generate 1 million perfect games of chess in like 2 seconds and just watch the computer play each other over and over again. But we don't. Why? And and how do you feel? I guess because you said you worked in film and TV and were a writer and stuff. How do you feel about things like Chat GPT-3? And the future of, I guess, creative writing and all of that stuff.
I have to say, it's very exciting, and there are all kinds of avenues that open up. But I recently sort of entered a formula for a series of stories that I'd been writing, and what came out was extraordinary. Original, subtle, hugely articulate. So it gave me pause for thought for quite some time. I actually came back from DEF CON last year and just looked out to sea for several days. I kind of realized, as someone who's not really in the field of AI, quite what a huge impact it's going to have on all of us. We were just talking earlier today, though, about the impact on composition and music, and for musicians, obviously building this little combobulator of ours. And I said to the guys, you've spent all this time honing your original sound, even if it is a composition of those 7 or 8 things, that you do all the time. How do you feel about that being accessible, that anyone can put any sound into this instrument and get out a resemblance of their favorite music producer in real time? Another realization I had is how important the quality of the data that you put in and how much it impacts what you get out. It's not just all about just bringing everything in all the time. So what the guys have done here is train their neural networks on extraordinary sound designers and music producers. Richard Devine said he was happy to be a part of it today. So I kind of feel like being part of this great experiment is more important and more prevalent than the fear factor, which quite rightly should be there. It causes us to keep questioning ourselves. Yeah, the scope and the magnitude of the universe and the metaverse of sound that we now have access to suddenly is extraordinary. I think of Ben talking about his days back in Alaska as a teenager being like mind blown because he could download kick drums. And now we can do stuff like this. So the scope of the power of those neural network training capabilities gives us so many avenues that people like CJ and Zach have been thinking about for 10 years, but which are mind-blowing for most of us. Yeah.
Cool. And then I guess, Ben, you said you have some examples you want to show, but maybe before you show those examples, you can maybe just give your thoughts on some of the stuff that we've talked about as well.
Yes, well, there's no way around it. I do think that creative AI is going to majorly disrupt all creative industries. I think it's the most disruptive thing to happen to creative industries since the internet. And anytime there's a major innovation, there are going to be some people left behind, unfortunately. And so there are some valid fears. Like if you make a living making background music for TikTok videos, for instance, that job is gone. There's gonna just be, I think eventually you're just gonna describe what you want in the background, and it's out of the box canned music. And these companies, these big companies, they don't want to be creating license deals with 1 million different artists. If they can generate it, they probably will. I think that a lot of photography and stock imagery is also probably going to be gone because of image generators. But in my mind, that is very low-hanging fruit. It's really hard to, as least right now, to imagine hearing something that would just straight up replace Mr. Bill or replace your the details and the nuance and the feeling that you're putting into music. And what I see is the entertainment industry just expanding, like in the last few months with DALL-E and Stable Diffusion and Midjourney kind of taking over. My news feed and on my social media has gotten so much more artistic. I love it, and my friends who are artists, they're most of them are embracing it. They're figuring out how to incorporate it into their processes, and the overwhelming feeling is that there's a new route to make art that's so accessible to so many people. Like when I got into music, I actually, I'm going to admit something on your show. I have very small hands, and I don't have very good dexterity. And when I was like 10 years old, the doctor told my mom, he says, give him a guitar and video games. Maybe that'll get him better at moving his fingers. And for the last 2,000 years, music has been only reserved for those of us who have the physical dexterity to express it. And a lot of people that aren't physically don't have great physical abilities, they've been kind of left behind. I wonder throughout history how many great musicians that we just would never know about because they didn't have a way of expressing it, because they weren't good at playing piano or weren't really good at playing guitar or something. I'm really excited about the amount of people that this is going to bring accessibility to, that the new routes of creativity that this is actually going to open. And I'm really excited to become a part of the conversation with Datamined Audio. Our real mission here is to have a really positive impact when it's still really early days. It's really in the inception days. I think eventually, of course, there's going to be opportunists. There's going to be big companies, tech companies kind of coming in looking for profitability and opportunities and stuff. But right now, we're just a small group of creative individuals and artists. We're trying to collaborate with AI versions of ourselves. We're trying to imprint a small part of what we do into a computer and feed it back to ourselves and be able to explore it and play it in ways that we were unable to before. This plugin we're trying to build is going to offer a wide range of options to discover and synthesize sounds in a very musical way. I just can't wait to hear what it's going to sound like when I finally make the perfect data set of my own music and see what I can pull out of this latent space.
I mean, it's an extraordinary instrument. You can put in any sound, and then you can say, I want 50% of Mr. Bill's noise and 50% of Rob Clouth's transients, and then from those sounds you can mess with them. I mean, that's the simple person process, and that blows my mind.
Yeah, and I think you bring a good point up there, Ben, which is like accessibility. I think this is even happening on a smaller scale just within electronic music producers as well, right? Like there's been a bunch of people, and still is a bunch of people, specifically in my space, which is essentially dubstep music space at this point, who wouldn't be able to make crazy dubstep tunes without accessibility to the sounds in those dubstep tunes, right? Like there's people making Skrillex level sounding shit who don't know how to synthesize things in the way that Skrillex knows how to, but because all of those sounds and all of those things are so accessible to everybody, we now have a bunch of people that sound like Skrillex, but then there's also a bunch of examples of dubstep producers who are going way further beyond that with those sounds who wouldn't have been able to in any other way. So yeah, I suppose it is really exciting in the sense that there's people out there who may even be completely tech illiterate, not know how to use a computer at all. And if we get AI and accessibility up to the level that you're talking about, or that I'm imagining at least in my head, we could simply just go put a headset on them and bam, like the music that they have in their brain could then exist as well. And that'd be extremely interesting to see what kind of stuff comes out of different kinds of brains without having to, because one of the things that gets in the way of making music a lot of the time is the technical stuff, right? It's like so often I'll move a kick drum off somewhere else or a bass hit somewhere else or duck a thing here or there, which changes the musical idea to some degree because I know so much about audio engineering and production, and that influences my decision so much that I'll be like, all right, this doesn't sound good here, and it probably will be really difficult to get sounding good there without like a crazy good mix down and crazy good at EQing and sidechaining and all that kind of crap. So to solve it, I just won't have it there. I'll put that beat on another beat or get rid of it completely, right? So that influences my decisions constantly. And I realized this through collaborating with a lot of bigger producers who try not to let that technical thing get in the way of their production so much and try to just like have the musical idea be the musical idea and just try and make the production as good as possible for that musical idea versus changing the musical idea to get the production sounding better. So yeah, stuff like that, like people having these technical pieces of information in their mind, producers, it influences the decisions a lot, I think. So to remove that completely, to just put some sort of accessibility thing onto just like, let's say, quote unquote, like a non-producer, basically. Yeah, you get to hear some really interesting music and some really well-written music, I think, from that process. So moving on to examples, I'm really interested to hear what you guys are working on and the kinds of stuff that you're doing here. We tested out sharing your Ableton before the stream, and it seemed to be working. So would you mind showing us some examples?
Sure. What I have prepared here is just an absolute bare bones kind of a testing palette that we have. So I'm going to be running Max for Live, and we've just loaded up a model that was trained for the last 2 days on Mr. Bill's music. And Zach's been doing the training here. He handed me the USB as we were calling you, and I have not heard it yet. We've just heard little previews kind of chirp out of the system every couple hours, but this is our first time to try out a style transfer on your stuff, and I'm really excited because a lot of the stuff that we've been training on have been like songs and full mixes and loops, but a lot the stuff that you sent are like one hits and like single chords, so it doesn't have this temporal cohesion in the same way that like a fully mixed track might. So I really don't know how it's going to come out. This will be a really exciting experiment. So let's give this a shot. I'm going to hit share then. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn down the volume all the way so you don't hear that at all. And we're going to start sending this audio into an encoder that's going to try to reconstruct the audio based on what it's learned from the massive sample libraries he sent us. So let's see what happens. There we go.
Wow, and that's happening in real time? Wow.
Kind of interesting. So we get some pretty interesting results when we do stuff like run noise right through this. Like we could just straight up go to, like I got an operator patch over here, send stuff that's not necessarily a drum beat. We could just send so we're going to send something like that in there. Yeah, so I'm just going to send that right in like a tone going up and down. There we go. So the tone is almost like being used to navigate through this latent space.
Right.
And you can get some really interesting and unexpected results using just normal synthesis. Ooh, listen to that. Oh yeah, there we go.
Pretty nasty.
So question. So when you're sending a signal, like let's say a sine tone from like whatever 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz as just like a ramp up, is this algorithm then essentially saying, this is what I think Bill would sound like at 20 hertz. This is what I think Bill would sound like at 21 hertz. This is what I think Bill would sound like at 22 hertz. This is what I think Bill would sound like at 23 hertz, etc. Basically all the way up the thing? Or is it doing that every 512 increments? Or what's going on with that?
Oh, great question. Okay, how do I just describe this without being too jargony? But I'll give it a shot. So, the frame is 2048 samples. So each frame is being resynthesized through the neural net, and the neural net has only been trained on Mr. Bill stuff. So I don't think there's any sine wave sweeps in the data. So that means it's being sent out of distribution.
So what I'm not saying that it would do what I would do to a sine wave at each frequency. I'm saying like you've trained the thing on my data, so it has an idea of like the things that I would do, right? And the whole purpose of the thing is to be like, this is what I think Bill would do, and then based on the input, this is what I think Bill would do. Is that am I basically correct in saying that part of it?
It's yeah, sort of. I guess yeah. It's trying to like reconstruct that like from a distribution that is only Bill stuff.
Right.
And because like sine waves aren't in the data, it has to pick something close enough. And that's why this particular demo sounds like really glitch machine-y.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if we do send a sine tone into it, that just goes boop. Is it then basically picking like just parts of the frequency spectrum and just being like, this is what I think Bill sounds like around that area of the frequency spectrum, and then this is what I think Bill sounds like around this area of the frequency spectrum, and it's just basically yeah. Does that make sense?
Loosely.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's super interesting. If you could like perfectly recreate any artist sound off their discography and just send sine sweeps into it, and then have it just like frequency glide, basically be like, this is what I think Tipper sounds like from 0 to 100 hertz. This is what I think Tipper sounds like from 100 to 200 hertz, and just like send sweeps into it and just generate sweeps of Tipper.
We would love to get a Tipper set in here.
Could you show us some examples of stuff that you have tested and spent a bit more time on? I'm curious just to see what kind of like.
Oh yeah.
Like the best quality.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, like what's your best case result so far? Yeah.
Yeah.
So someone had a question in the chat. Just to clarify, what you're doing here is you're sending in like some simple 808 drums.
Sounds just like this.
Yeah. And then what's going on in that latent space, i.e. the space at which all the processing and shit is happening, is it saying, I'm going to regenerate something and spit it out at real time that sounds like Rob Clouth. It's not actually just taking Rob Clouth samples and replacing those. It's actually generating all of that sound in real time, correct?
Exactly. The former that you mentioned is called concatenative synthesis, and that's also known as audio mosaicing. And that is a umbrella of algorithms that do exactly that. That you give it a corpus of sound, and then you show it some kind of musical structure, and the algorithm recreates a musical structure using the corpus of sound. So I did a lot of research, actually inspired by Rob, about concatenative synthesis, and a lot of those ideas do translate and transfer over. But what this is doing is it's just a neural network learns what Rob Clouth might sound like. And so when it synthesizes new sounds, it is actually a new sound. It is attempting to sound like everything that it's learned inside of its training set. So one thing that we think it would be interesting to play with is that I'm a big fan of delays. And one thing that we've rigged this up to do is I've got like a echo, just a normal echo here on the end. And if I put the dry wet at 100%, we can send the output of the neural net back into itself. And so we found some very colorful results doing that.
Just to be clear as to what you're doing here, you're sending that 808 loop into it. You're saying create a thing in real time that sounds like Rob Clouth. Take that thing that you recreated that sounds like Rob Clouth based on the 808 loop, and then send it back in again and recreate a thing that sounds like the recreated thing that Rob Clouth made based on the 808 loop, correct?
Yes. And every time it goes back around, just like with any good dub delay, it's passing through this same EQ, which is why I'm kind of going nuts with this, because you can kind of encourage it to recursively continue to compound on its spectral characteristics.
Fuck yeah. Well, that's fucking crazy. But hey, man, we're wrapping up here. I think it's like it's been a bit over an hour at this point. I try to keep these a little bit about that length, especially with just the density of information here. I think we could easily chat on this for many, many hours. Is there any final thoughts that anyone wanted to share on AI music in general, in the generative music space before we wrap up?
I saw in the comments someone was talking about copyright and like how like artists might feel about a data set being made of their music and then other people use it. I say fucking go for it. There is so much more to making a track than just what the kind of sound. You know, there's like the whole structure, there's the concept behind it, there's the feeling that went into it when you were making it, and these models don't capture that. So yeah, you might be able to get a sound which is kind of inspired by another artist or something like that, but you're definitely not copying them. There is so much more other angles and so much more creative aspects which go into manipulating that model. So I don't think copyright really enters into this at all.
Also, copyright in general is, in my opinion, just adding artificial scarcity to a thing, right?
And I want to wrap it up by saying, if this interests you, especially if you're a music producer or developer or into machine learning, come check out the Harmony Discord. Come follow Dadabots. Come join the community. We have how many? We have like 19,000 people in our community, or 1,900 people. And what we're doing is open source, and we share the code, and we share our knowledge, and you can go up and get started if you're not even a coder. This could be your first jump into code. Lots of people have been doing this, been running Google Colabs just in the browser to train their own personal rave models that they can throw into an Tilda, throw it into Max for Live, and once our plugin is done, you just throw it into our plugin.
And if this all scares you and you think it's a little bit shady or suspect, that's okay too. But I think what's interesting is getting good people, good musicians, good artists to at least have an eye on it, be part of developing the culture early on, and not just the tech bros.
Yeah, I think that this is scary in the same way that adding agriculture was scary to farmers back in the day. It's like we eventually, I think, will just get humanity to a point where all of the sort of menial, like for instance, a hunter-gatherer, right? If you don't have to go hunt food anymore and gather food anymore because agriculture is taking care of that, you know, somebody who was a hunter and spent 24 hours a day having to worry about just getting food into their body to survive and whatnot, not having to be concerned about that anymore, has just invented a new way of living, essentially. And I think AI will probably have a similar sort of result on humanity for that kind of thing. If you don't have to spend so much effort and time making a build-up anymore, then you just have more time for the drop, bro.
Yeah, that's something we're really excited about. Like, this is just one application. And I mean, in the future, one thing that we've been talking about is like, what if you could get Ableton to just watch everything that you do and then eventually learn your behavior, as you were suggesting? I mean, eventually it'd be just great to highlight a section and be like, I don't want to make a build up today. Just could you start me off with a build up? Anyway, it's been really extraordinary working with these artists here. I've been such a huge fan of Rob Clouth for the last decade, and the work that CJ and Zach has been doing is just absolutely changing the world. And we're all here brought under this roof here at Eagle Rock in Scotland. And Catherine has been trying to curate a intentional creative community that can produce nuggets like this. And I'm really looking forward to having more people out here in Scotland. We're actually having a retreat here on March 17th, just spending 10 days out here on the cliff, just absolutely turning into a creative utopia. And we want to do more things like that. And we want this to be a space that people can bring new ideas and new energy into. And it's a real honor to be working with these guys and to be able to talk to you about it today, Bill.
Yeah, I appreciate the idea for having this be on my platform. And yeah, I really appreciate the conversation. Although I don't think we touched on absolutely everything. I think It was maybe a good little primer for some people at least. And also the fact that I was on this podcast 2-3 years ago, basically talking about all of this stuff. And I have so many producers who have been on this podcast on record on the Mr. Bill podcast saying, oh man, we're like 30 years off that shit. It's just so sick to be like 2 years or 3 years later having this exact same conversation, but in a completely new light. So yeah, I really appreciate everyone being on this, and thanks again.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Thanks again.
Thanks for everyone tuning in.
Yo, what's up? Thanks for listening to the Mr. Bill podcast. This show is produced and edited by Robert Fumo. You can get early access to the show by going to my website, MrBillsTunes.com, and paying me instead of Patreon. And remember to go rate and review on iTunes, or I'm going to come to your house and punch your dog in the throat, upper deck your toilet, and fuck your partner. Note, I may or may not do those last couple of things. You should probably just go rate it on iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is that you listen to the podcast on, because it really helps the podcast. But just know that it'll go a long fucking way to me not doing those things if you do go do that. So just putting that out there.